Good morning. Good morning. Welcome everybody to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha Studebaker Carl, and I'm here with my good friends Dan and Sandy, Catherine and Bill. And today we're talking about the 5 love languages, and we're discussing chapter 1. The last time that we were on, we kind of, I got to remember what we did talk about. We just kind of jumped in and started discussing why we were reading this book and some of the things that we thought we'd get out of it and that sort of thing. We also discussed the fact that there's a bunch of resources with this book. One particular resource is that you can go on to the 5 Love Languages website and take a little profile quiz to help you understand what love language you speak, and then you can also get your spouse or significant other or friend or family member, whoever you want to work on a relationship with, to take the profile questionnaire as well. And then you can learn more about that person and how you guys can increase and better your relationship. So if you haven't done that, there'll be a link below this video on YouTube and over on our Facebook group where you can connect with that website, get that profile quiz taken. Also download the study guide and any other information you might need to participate with us. But let's go ahead and introduce each other, or everybody introduce themselves, excuse me, and then we can get this discussion going for chapter 1. Sorry, I'm off my game today.
Good morning. This is Catherine Clement in Boulder, Colorado, and looking forward to. I've been thinking a lot about this. I'm guessing we're working on chapter 1 today, but there's not a lot of information in chapter 1, but there's some good questions there, and I think everybody's going to get a lot out of this book.
Good morning. This is Bill. Oh, okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, well, I'll go ahead. This is Bill Naybauer. I'm up in Olympia, Washington. I've read this book before, and it's always a good refresher to remind yourself what love language you are and your significant other, in this case, my wife. I'm more of a touchy feeling, and she's a act of service, I think is what it is. But have a good day, and I'll be listening in. Thanks.
Good morning. Okay, my mute button got stuck there for a minute, but Sandy Root here in sunny Miami Beach, and I'm really looking forward to this book. As I just skimmed through the study guide, actually, I was like, oh, there's some good questions in there, so I'm looking forward to learning more about myself and more about how to be better in relationships, in all relationships, so yay!
I'm Dan Sisek, and I have been reading this book like crazy. I'm actually to chapter 8 myself personally, because once I started reading it, I just kind of got in the flow and just kind of went with it. I'm really loving the book. I still need to take the profile part of it so I can kind of get an idea what my love language is, although I think I know parts of it. It's like I'm thinking I'm a weird mixture though. I'm touchy feely, but I'm like acts of service, but I like words of, you know, building up. So it's going to be funny to see how it plays out when I do my profile and which one comes out as my basic love language. And then I can start learning and understanding others, how they are, to maybe better some of my other relationships.
Yeah, last week's assignment was to, go ahead and do the profile and then get another person to do it with you. So it was really interesting because I did the profile and then I had my husband do it as well. And that first, I was actually glad we kind of took last week off because we hadn't discussed it, or even, we didn't have a time to even touch base on it until after last Saturday. So, but it was really interesting the way that the results came out. And let's talk a little bit about chapter 1 before we get into the profile and all of that kind of thing. At the beginning of the chapter, it talked about Now, of course, this book that we're studying is the one that is listed for singles. But of course, it is good for anyone, whether you're married, whether you're single, whether you're looking for a relationship, or whether you're just trying to improve your family relationships, work relationships, friends, etc. And I thought it was really interesting at the beginning of this book. It discussed like all the statistics relating to single people, and that the single adult percentages are more than what they ever have been before. And I've noticed that too, is that there's a lot of people that are older that are single. And, of course, when I was younger, it always seemed like, the goal of life was to get into a relationship and then live happily ever after, And, of course, I don't feel like that's what happens most of the time. I know a lot of people that are divorced that have struggled in their relationships, and it's been hard. I've watched them struggle through them, and somehow or another, I don't know what it is with me and my husband, but we've managed to just like fight through that struggle. And because there's been some pretty rough patches in our life, even with, I had never read this book, if I had, it may have been easier. I don't know. But I guess the kind of the key thing that it was kind of trying to explain to us there was the fact that, that we all desire love, that we all want to express love, and we kind of expect that from the other people in our lives, but we also don't necessarily know how to do it. And I feel like when we were younger, at least in my life, I saw a lot of movies, like Disney movies, that just made it seem like, oh, it's so easy. You find your person, and then la 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 la, you're happy, and the world is wonderful, and you live happily ever after. And of course, who has experienced it that way? I haven't. And so I think that that's kind of one of the things that's trying to address here is that, hey, yeah, this is what we want, but sometimes it's there's a lot more to it than just you finding the right person. And for a lot of years, I felt like with my husband and I had these feelings off and on. I'm like, maybe he's not the right person. Maybe I don't know. Maybe what I thought it was is not what it is. And and so we struggled, but I don't know, somehow we managed to work through it. Now I realize that it wasn't that he was Mr. Right necessarily. It was that we were working on it together. We were learning as we go in order to, make our relationship better and make it grow. So I think it's really interesting. This book kind of addresses that fact that, hey, it doesn't just happen by magic. It's something that you have to work on. That's something you can learn. So I don't know, what do you guys think when you first read this chapter? What was it that came up for you?
I think for me, the underlying part that I got out of it was that all relationships struggle and all, aspects go through their ups and downs. It's how much you care and, you know, love that person. Like with family, you kind of stuck with family. You can't really, you know, I guess you can kind of divorce them, so to speak, just not have anything to do with them. But what does that do? What does that do for you? Whereas in the long run, I think the book also points out that it's through the struggle that you learn about each other, and it hopefully gets you to that end part where, yeah, it's not that Cinderella happily ever after, but it is, in a sense, happily ever after because you had a better understanding of each other and know where each other's coming from and can better learn to traverse those things to make the journey easier so that way it can become more enjoyable for both of you. And I think that's what we're all striving for in any and all relationships is that harmonious effect of, that, okay, you understand me, I understand you. I know we're not always going to agree or, you know, see everything eye to eye, but we know where each other's coming from. I can still love you in that, and we can still move forward. And I think that's half the battle. I think that's where we think we want everybody to be exactly like us, but to me that would be boring because I don't want to interact all the time with people exactly like me, because it just would seem, I don't think there would be any push or pull or anything to help me grow in that sense. And I think that's part of the other end of it, is to help us grow in our capacities for what we can give back out to people too.
Hey, Dan, I think you hit it right on the head where you need to have somebody different. Uh, like if you didn't have to struggle, you wouldn't go any place or you wouldn't grow. There's always got to be a resistance. If everything, say you're trying to walk and everything there was no resistance there, no friction, you wouldn't move. And so you need to have some resistance to grow, to see what others are doing and start thinking about what you can do and what you can do to grow.
It was interesting this past week. I had kind of an emotional, I don't know what you call it. Sometimes I just go through these emotional roller coasters and I get this kind of like just, I don't know, weird depression thing that comes over me. And then I'm just like super emotional for no apparent reason. And so I had this kind of like little episode this past week with my husband. And of course he knows, he recognized this. Now at the beginning of a relationship, it made things ugly, but now he recognizes it doesn't have anything to do with him and that he doesn't need to take it personally and that he can just be there as my support person. And, and I was kind of talking about that, that aspect to him of how, one of the things that I have kind of going on in the back of my mind, one of these kind of fears in my life that I have as a middle-aged woman, is if something happens to him and he's not there anymore. So I have fears revolving around that. And I was telling him, I'm like, you're the only person I work on my shit with. Everybody else, my sister, my mom, I just kind of like, I just can't deal with you now. I just say I have you for a little while. You're great. And I'm with you. And I want to be around you for a short burst of time, but long periods of time, not so much. So when I was discussing with my husband, I'm like, if something happens to you, I'm going to have nobody, not really, but that was kind of how I felt. But it was like nobody I'm really, really close with, because I told him, I'm like, you're the only one I work on my shit with, and, but it's interesting because, other than my kids, obviously I'm close with them, but, it's interesting that you said that, Dan, because, yeah, we have struggled in our relationship because there are some significant differences between us. We have different interests. We have different ideas of just the way things should go in our lives, financially and, life-wise and things and, just a lot of things. So we've got a lot that we had to work on. Because of those differences. And when I kind of look back on my life, I realized, I have done a lot of work in order to make things work with him. Whereas with my sister, stuff comes up and I just want to strangle her and I want to run away, I don't want to work on it. And it's the same way with my mom. I try, but I can only, I only have so much energy for that. And, yeah, you guys know how it is with siblings. What is it with that? I don't know. We love each other, and like you said, Dan, we can't really divorce them, but at the same time, I can definitely distance myself when I get feeling up to here with whatever. But I realize it's my own stuff that I need to work on if I really want to move further along in my relationship with my sister and my mom. I got to work on that stuff. And but yeah, anyway, that was what kind of came up for me when you guys were talking about that.
Yeah, even though I haven't read the chapter, I'll just talk on what I'm gathering from you guys. But yeah, I mean, ultimately everything comes back to looking within, indeed, and just making a shift inside ourselves can change a relationship like that. And I'm sure this book will help see things like that. Like, oh, well, if I was doing their love language and you start maybe just try it once and they're like totally changed, and then you're like, oh, that's all I needed to do. So I'm looking forward to new insights and learning things like the difficult relationships in my life, like especially my mom, learning what her love language is. Like I never thought, what is my mom's love language? What is my parents' love language? So it'll be interesting to learn as we go and try to pick out what their language is. Maybe send them the quiz too. My mom will be like, what is that? And luckily, me and my brother get along great. We don't see each other that often. Maybe that's why. But no, we're very different. But when we get together, we have so much fun. So I'm blessed with that relationship. But yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing how this can help my relationship with my parents.
Catherine's turn.
I have to say, I find it fascinating that the parents get the blame for everything. Like, I watch these forensic shows, all these mass, psychopath killers. It's all because of their parents. Like, everything is always blamed on the parents. I'm telling you, being a parent is hard as hell. Like, you do the best you can at the time, and you make a whole lot of mistakes. But it appears that, like, if you do, your kid's going to be a psychopath or something. So it's a lot of stress. I mean, it's really, and I look at myself and I think, is that really true? Can that really be true? Or is that just an excuse? And then I look at myself and here I am, like, I suck at relationships, and I didn't have, I didn't have a bond with my mother or my father in early years. Now I never was able to develop one with my dad because he died, but my mom, I mean, we're close now, but I didn't have that initial bonding as a child. And how has that affected me as far as bonding with people? Because sometimes, I mean, I can just do with or without people. Like, it's just that simple. And it scares me how quickly I can write somebody off and really never think of them again. Like, it's frightening. Sometimes I wonder if I am a psychopath or something, because I can just cut my feelings off for somebody with a snap of a finger if they do the wrong thing, And it has to be a pretty significant thing, don't get me wrong, but once, like, there's a line, and once that line is crossed, they're gone. They're erased from my memory banks. That's it. I reboot. They never existed. So I wonder, how much of that could that be caused by, I think it's just been caused because I get tired of being walked on, or something. But how much of that really goes back to that lack of bonding as a child? I don't know. But I went through, my son, and I've mentioned this before, my son had a challenge with drugs, and there were times when he was detoxing or when he was in the throes of those drugs, he would get suicidal, and I would be on the phone with him for days at a time, basically, trying to talk him down and stuff. And some of the things that he said to me that he remembers from his early childhood, things that I would never, ever, ever, ever have even given a second thought to. But, and in his non-drugged state of mind, maybe he didn't either, but in his out of control drugged state of mind, like, those things were haunting him, and it floored me. Like, to me, it was such insignificant little things, but he harbors those in his brain, and So there's so much that goes on in the subconscious that we don't even realize, and like the other day, I don't know what I was thinking. Like I got on this online dating site and I started to fill out the thing. And I guess I was on there too long or something. It timed out. So thank God, like when I hit enter, it just erased it all. And I was like, thank you, God, because I'm so not ready for this, but like there's a part of me that thinks there has to be somebody out there for me, and then there's another part of me that says, no, just no way, just like stick with the wolf dog, you're fine, like you got this. So I hope that I've kind of studied the love languages a little bit, and I haven't read this particular book, but I'm really, it'll be an interesting book, and I hope that that it brings some enlightenment to some areas. I do know that, if you watch how people tell you their love languages by even like Facebook messaging. I was just noticing this morning, like I have this fellow that messages me, and it occurred to me, I mean, it's not romantic or anything, we're just friends, but he always sends me very long, beautifully written words of affirmation, basically. So I know that's his love language. There's no, like, I was looking at the messages more, I'm like, okay, that's your love language, that's your love, like you can tell by how people interact with you. And it really, if you can, I think we all, and this may be in chapter 2 because I read a little bit ahead too. We tend to show people love through our love language, and that's the major hurdle, I think, is we have to be able to recognize their love language and then show them love that way, because our love language doesn't work for them.
I was gonna piggyback off of what you just said, Catherine, because I've read ahead, actually a lot ahead. but but I think first in doing the profile, and I think it's a good thing that Sandy, I mean that Samantha, sorry, Samantha, that you gave us the link to the profile stuff and everything in the group and stuff, because that helps us understand ourselves better, and then like you said, give it to somebody that you really wanting to work on. But I think it just helps us understand ours. But then in reading through this book and understanding the different types, we can pick up, like Catherine says, people will tell us what their love language is, show us, tell us however they are, and picking up on that, then we can try and work on speaking to them back in that. But that's half the battle, because we're so rooted in our love language and we want people to feed us that's why we give it out, not realizing we're giving that out most of the time. And I think that's where a lot of the conflict happen, and confusion and issues and stuff. But that's part of the what I'm looking at now is a wonderful journey to get to that better understanding through time. But something I've noticed, after reading this book and realizing some aspects, is that for the first time, I've kind of really felt alone. I don't think I've ever really felt alone, because of the fact that, growing up, I had my grandmother who fed into me very well and made me feel very loved and stuff. Not my real parents. I didn't have that connection like Catherine, didn't have, and I still don't have that because my real father is gone and my real mom and I are just not there. But even me and my mom here, my aunt, who I call mom, we don't have that full connectedness, and I would like that more. And I think it's because of the difference. So going through that, but in realizing that, like you guys, you have, your children, Samantha, and then you have your grandkids. Now that my roommate has had his custody of his daughter and his daughter's been here, I felt that daily, unconditional, because his daughter is just awesome, and she just loves me and everything like that. And I've not really felt that before in a long time. I felt it from my grandmother, but I've not felt that, and I realized just how much I've wanted that and yearned for that. And now as I'm getting older, I'm realizing, okay, I'm not married. I have no wife. I have no kids. I have nothing. I'm getting older. Who's going to be that person that's going to be there to, you know, as things, for lack of a better word, kind of go downhill, I go back to reverting to being like a child again. You know, who's going to be that person that's going to be there for me? And it really has me scared. And like I said, for the first time, I've been feeling really alone lately. And I think this book will help me change that to where I can learn to speak other people's love languages and get what I need back in the relationships I have.
I feel you, Dan. As I talk to a lot of friends who are getting older too, and like I have some friends in their 50s and early 60s who, don't have a partner, or some that chose not to have kids, and now they're, like, what's going to happen when I'm older? I don't have children to take care of me when I'm older. I don't have a person to be with, and I think it's something of our times, actually, that people are experiencing this aloneness, because this wasn't even happening, 30 years ago. Families were more common to have a family that you would have for your whole life. And now it feels like more and more people are alone, and it's sad. So it's making me cry now too. But yeah, then when you were talking, Catherine, about like I forget exactly how you were wording it, but for me, it reminded me of this trauma hacking seminar I was listening to on a podcast one day, and how in different relationships, we can see something that affects us for the rest of our lives. Like you're a kid and you're waiting for your dad after school to pick you up, and he's 5 minutes late, and you have this thought in your mind that, oh, he doesn't care for me, or blah, blah, blah. Just make some statement, and it affects you for the rest of your life. That one statement, because your father was 5 minutes late, and he could look back and say, what, really? That affected you? And these little blips of things can change a person in an instant for the rest of their life. So I was thinking of things like that, and I remember talking to my mom once about things that I felt affected me when I was young, that she did, and just, telling her just to be open, like, this is how I viewed it. I'm not saying it's wrong or blah, 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 but this is how I took it. And there were things she didn't even remember. She's like, what? I don't even remember that. Or, what are you talking about? You're making stuff up. And I'm like, no, this is how I perceived it. This is what went on in my view of it. And a lot of times she didn't remember it, or didn't understand why it affected me the way it did. And so I think that also, causes bumps in our relationship, because he just doesn't let me perceive things the way I perceive them. Or if if something affected me in a way that it did, then accept that. That's how it affected me. It's not something to, it's not to make her feel bad or anyone feel bad, just to bring awareness to the relationship so it can build and grow, not make us butt heads more. So yeah, it's interesting to think, like, in each relationship, each person in that relationship is picking up on different things in each other, and one may not even have a clue that the other one is thinking or perceiving something that you're doing that you don't even know. So it's like, just even sounds so complex. Like just having a relation, like any relationship, it's like, wow.
That just reminds me more and more about how much this is inner work versus expecting other people to do work on themselves. And when just this last time that my mom and I got together, and we had, almost a month of time where we were together, and there was so much that was coming up that it's been, I want to say, 2, maybe 3 years since the last time I spent that much time with her, when she had her shoulder surgery a few years back, and I went and stayed with her for 3 weeks. And the difference between that time and this time was really interesting, because that time, I don't know, I was in a different space in my own mind and peacefulness, and I felt like it didn't affect me as much, which is really weird considering I'm multiple years further along in supposedly my personal growth. But I, at that point, I don't know, or maybe it was just a different dynamic. I have no idea. But either way, that time I did get a bunch of stress. Catherine, when you were talking about this underlying subconscious stuff that happened, during that visit, I ended up with this just really, really bad back pain that I haven't, like, something in my back that always causes me discomfort when I'm really stressed out anyway. But it like flared up like nobody's business that after that 3 weeks that I spent with my mom. And even though I was feeling like it was much more of a mellow visit, I got a little stressed, but not as much as I did this time. This time I hung out with her, and all these things kept coming up, but I was questioning them in my mind. What is it that's got you upset about that? What is it that's causing you to feel this way? I was like questioning it, trying to work on it in myself. And I didn't end up with the pain in my back. I just ended up with it all in my head, and I don't know which is worse, to be honest with you. One, I felt more peaceful, but I ended up with back pain. And this time I felt less peaceful, but I started working on my stuff a little bit, but another thing that kind of came up for me when you guys were just talking is, and the ways that we perceive things. My relationship with my mom and the dynamics between us and the emotional things that come up for me are completely different than what they are for my sister and my brothers. And even though we had some similar experiences, I realized there's a 3-year stretch between me and my oldest younger brother, and 6 years between me and my sister. And my parents divorced about the time that I was moving out of the house. And so for me, I grew up with my family together. I got to that adult age with my family together, whereas my sister was 6 years younger when my parents divorced. And so my sisters and brothers have this completely different experience of their relationship with my mom and my dad than what I did. And I didn't even think about that. Even though I was aware of it, I didn't really think about that, because there's like that last 10 years of your life right before you become an adult are like significant when it comes to your parents, because that's your time when you are like establishing who you are, and you're like, really feeling out what you're like, who you think that you are and what you're about. And you have all this emotional roller coaster when you're a teenager, and having that solid parental structure is huge, apparently, because I feel like I just have a completely different life experience and way of dealing with my shit in the world compared to what my brothers and sisters do. They have so much more stuff that they have to work on with regards to my parents than what I do. And I have a lot of shit, but it's just been interesting seeing how they deal with things compared to how I've dealt with things. And I'm not saying that I'm any better than they are by any means. It's not what I'm suggesting. It's just different, in the way that we process emotional things and stress. And and Catherine, who was it that was saying something about not remembering? Something was coming up for some family member and they don't remember it the same way. And my sister remembers things that I did when I was a teenager relating to her that I'm like, I did not do that. I don't remember it at all. And, but it was significant for her, which is just really interesting. So, interesting. Oh, one thing I was going to say on here is, we're talking about all this love. There's a section in the chapter that talks about, that we all want love. We all want to believe that we're loved, and we want to feel that other people are loved by us. And that's like something that we can all agree on, is that we all have that need, right? And and so I think it's just really interesting just talking about all these different aspects of our different relationships, and realizing, what we want and what we expect, and then remembering, okay, it's a lot of what we got to work on inside ourselves too, so that we are ready for whatever that next step is, and with our relationships. And of course, I have my husband, but I know I need to work on my other relationships with my sister and my mom, and if I want to have any other significant people in my life, then I need to be working on those as well. So, I'm right there with you guys. That whole, I do have fears about being alone later in life. It's scary. It's scary stuff, and just having somebody to count on for anything. And in this chapter, he talks about this young man who had an injury and who had someone in his life to help support him. Have you guys ever had something happen where something significant? With me, I've had some serious, like, I've been with my husband more than half of my life now, and so he's my support person when anything happens. But for you guys, have you had, Catherine, I know you had your accident years ago. Who was in your life to support you through that? Did you have somebody?
I have a friend. When I was in Oklahoma, I have a friend named Jerry, and he actually came to my house, physically picked me up and took me to the hospital a couple of times, or when there was a rattlesnake in my house, I called him and he came and got him out for me and stuff like that. So yeah, I would say Jerry, but primarily I had no one, and I took care of myself. And I agree. Well, when I look towards the future, and of course I would be ignorant not to recognize all the injuries that I've had, and I don't want to paint a future of disability, but I have to admit, things could go backwards. So, and it worries me, I don't want my kids to have to take care of me. And that's a funny thing, because people say, oh, well, you had kids, so when you get old, your kids are going to take care of you. I don't want my kids to have to take care of me. I want my kids to be able to have their life, and not be burdened with grandma in the other room or something. And, but my experience in the past with relationships has been that I'm the caretaker. They don't take care of me anyway if anything goes wrong. So I don't think a relationship is the answer to that either, and I guess that's why I waffle back and forth. Do I want, everybody wants love, but love is work. And I don't know, in the second chapter, I think it is, he's talking to this young girl and she's getting ready to get married or something. And he said something about marriage being work. And she's like, well, what do you mean marriage is work? If it's work, maybe you shouldn't be married to that person. And I think Disney has done an amazing job at planting that seed in especially little girls, princesses' minds about how, the knight in shining armor is going to come save her and everything is going to be, wonderful. And it just, marriage is work. Any relationship is work. And I think we have very unrealistic expectations And that's why the divorce rate is as high as it is. And there are certainly, looking back honestly at my marriages, there are certainly, I had to laugh because he talks about somebody warning somebody when he's going to marry somebody that's been married 3 times, and I've been married 3 times. And I look back and I definitely see, where I went wrong. And I definitely see where 2 of those marriages definitely had to end. The other one, maybe I could have worked on that one, with the knowledge that I have now, I can see where we could have worked on things, but he's still an asshole. Like, I don't want to be married to him. So, it's just this getting old thing. I don't want the fear to push me to do something that I'm not ready to do or that isn't the right thing to do. And more so for the other person, because I just don't feel, and my love language, number 1, is acts of service. And because, like now I'm driving for Uber all day, every day, and I'm having to deal with pain. And so I get home, I am so exhausted. I don't have the energy to serve anybody. And if I can't serve somebody, then I don't feel like I'm showing them love. And I know that's in my head. Like, I get it. But that I have to be honest with myself and say, that's a real thing. That's a real issue. If I can't take care of somebody, I don't feel like I'm loving them or doing what I'm supposed to. And I just, I come home, I make a sandwich and eat some chips or something. I'm not going to stand there and cook for 2 hours and then do the dishes and then, but, I just don't have it in me. And so I don't know how we resolve these things, you guys. I guess we just keep talking about them on Saturdays.
I was I'm going to jump out again and make a point on what you were talking about, the Disney movies, because I think also, hate to say it, it also puts, because I met with family and friends and kids and nieces and nephews. I've seen a lot of these Disney movies, about the princesses and stuff, and have 2 nieces, so I've seen the Cinderellas and the Mulans and the all those, and but it also puts in, you know the way, a lot of things that we're taught as men, that we're supposed to be the one to come in and take care of everything and do it all and be that rock strong solid person, so the woman can, and it's, these bad ideas that are being put out there and planted, and unknowingly a lot of parents play into those things because, oh, it's a cute movie, or it's this or that or the other thing, not realizing what they're doing to their kids. And so that doesn't help, and then hitting on a point where you were talking about, the differences between your siblings and you. um I'm looking now at my brother, the one I call my brother. He's really my cousin. But it just hit me, the difference, because my real mom and stepdad were divorced when I was very little. I don't really remember my real father. Then my stepdad came in, and I went through all the craziness, and I went with that, and so that's where the relationship with my grandmother came out of. So that's messed up in my that's convoluted. Then I look at my brother, and up until I was 12, he and his twin brother had his parents, to themselves. They were married, and they were, a family, did things to family things. He worked, my mom was at home, with them and stuff. And then me and my sister moved in, and then that changed the dynamics. And then, just as me and my 2 brothers were going into ninth grade, the summer before that, they got divorced. So then there was that dynamic, because they had had their parents pretty much all their life up until what 15, 16 or so. And me, I came from a very broke family from the get-go. So I'm just looking back and trying to think of, the perceptions he might even have and some of the resentment he might have a little bit, even though I know he loves me and cares about me and we're brothers and we fight like brothers. But I can now get a grasp a little bit just because what you said, I'd never looked at it that way. I never put it in that perspective of, wow, I really came in and really screwed up his world in a lot of ways, because who's to say, maybe if me and my sister hadn't come and added the added stress on to their relationship, because my mom, the one I call my mom, I think she was the driving force behind it. I think he just did it just to make her happy. In all essence, I'm believing that, and I think that plays out because of the fact that ultimately he divorced and got involved with another woman and went off, and we've not heard high nor hair of him ever since. He has not come back around ever. So in that sense, and I know my brother's very resentful of his father for and was very pained by it. For me, it was just like, okay, this is kind of, it didn't hurt me as much. So wow, the revelation that I'm just getting out of what you were saying, just I have a lot to think about now. Things that I'm going to become pondering over in my brain, going, okay, you know, and weird. I don't, I don't blame myself, but I kind of blame the family dynamics that my family felt that they had to step in and do something. Oh, it just adds a whole another complicated layer on understanding these love languages and trying to get back to a point where I can maybe even help mend some of this in learning what their languages are and showing them how much I love them and how much they mean to me, so that way I can help fix some of that.
Wow, we've covered covered a lot today, and I've just been reminded, um, how much this Saturday Morning Mastermind has meant to me over the years, and how much you guys mean to me, and how much I've learned from each of you, and I appreciate you so very much. And sometimes I have these ideas in my head. I'm like, oh, what are we doing? We just keep doing this. We're not really making any progress. And I'm like, but that's stupid. We are making progress, even if it's just in our own lives and with each other, and that's a big thing, because I just love you guys so much. And I know that we can work through all of this, because we've got each other, if nothing else, when it comes to some things. So I was just sitting here thinking, thinking that we've got to figure out a way to get together at some point. I know we're on different sides of what seems like the planet. Obviously, it's not the planet, but it's the country, and some point in time we all need to get together in like Kansas City or something. I don't know, maybe that's the midway point for everybody, but it seems like the center of the country. But maybe we could go on like some kind of little vacation thing somewhere and meet up for a weekend. I don't know. Again.
I just, I don't even think about the fact that some of us have never met in person. It's so weird to think of, that some of us, I mean, Sandy, obviously you and I have shared rooms and stuff, but some of us have never met in person. It just blows my mind.
Mm-hmm. I know, right? It's crazy. It doesn't seem like that, but I mean, we're almost in person, sort of. I love technology, though, because it makes this possible. Whereas, I can't remember what I was watching or listening to the other day. Who knows? I think it was an old TV, or not TV movie, but just an old 80. It was the The Burbs with Tom Hanks. I don't know if you guys have seen that. It's a silly old movie. We've got Netflix, and we were just getting bored with whatever was on, and Chris just put that movie on, and I was like, ha ha, I remember, this is so funny. But I was just thinking back of the time when there wasn't technology like this, and you know, and how our world was before. Here we are, so able to connect with other people so much easier, and yet here I am. I don't connect with my mom this way, or with my daughter, which I'm like, God, why don't I mean I do sometimes with her. We'll do like Facebook, video chat together and whatnot, but it just makes me realize how much more opportunities I really do have with my family than what I allow myself to have. I mean, I'm stuck in the 80s, I guess, in my mind in some ways, but with you guys, I'm like right there. I don't know. It's funny. But okay, we're at the top of the hour. Does anybody have any final words on chapter 1 before we wrap up for today?
Well, one more thing that came to me, I think we talked about it briefly last week. Catherine, you may have brought it up today a little bit, of how, we tend to do for the other how we would want. Like if I'm gifts of service, then I give gifts of service. And I think I'd mentioned the last time that, a lot of my relationships, the significant ones, they would give me gifts. And I remember one guy in particular, after a year or so, he was like, "You never give me anything." And in my mind, I'm like, what? I'm always doing this for you. I do this. I do all these things for you. And for me, that was like, that's how I show love, is giving the acts of service. But that's what I want. So now it's interesting to see, okay, so in the future relationship, I can receive their acts of service, and then I can give them gifts. So depending on whatever it is, because I guess if they're giving gifts, that's how they most likely are wanting that back. So it's interesting because, it's so weird, because men love to give gifts, or they've been trained that way. I think, Catherine, you had posted about that too. But a lot of women don't want that's not their love language, a lot of women. So it's really interesting how that's been like ingrained, that women love to receive gifts, but maybe it's the men that really love to receive gifts more. So interesting, so interesting. This is going to be a great book. I'm excited.
Well, I think if nothing else, if we can all, since this parent relationship is obviously paramount in everybody's life, whether we know it or not, I think if nothing else, if we can figure out our parents' love languages, that will repair, or at least help us understand, maybe whatever lack of relationship was there won't have as big of an effect on our lives just by understanding that. Like now, my mom is she's a gift giver. That is her thing. And I don't give her gifts because I'm not a gift giver. So I need to consciously make that effort to go out and find something nice that my mother would enjoy. When I think of her, she has everything. I'm like, what the hell could I buy her that she doesn't have, or that she couldn't buy something of a better quality than what I could afford to buy her, But that's not the point. To her, the point is that I took 5 minutes out of my day, or 10 minutes, or however long, to find something. It shows her that I was thinking of her and that I cared enough about her. So I think understanding these languages, this guy, whatever his name is, he did a great job and figuring this out, or God brought it to him, however it came to him. I'm glad that he wrote it all down, and he's done these books, and he does all this stuff, because it really is now understanding that. Because as a child, just moving in with her at age 9, I just felt like she was trying to buy me and make up for the lost time. And there was no way to make up the lost time. So it made immediate resentment. I know it was a 9-year-old's mind, and I don't feel that way anymore, but at that point I did. So for me to understand that now, it could have made such a difference in our relationship through the years, and especially during my childhood. So I think it's an excellent study, and I guess just loving someone enough to try to figure out their love language and at least try to give it to them the way that they want is something. I don't know. I do love all you guys though, and I think we got to keep doing this even if we never grow anymore. That's okay, because people do watch these videos. There are people that are getting stuff out of this, whether they come on here live with us or not. And even if they don't, even if nobody ever watched our videos anymore, I still want to keep doing it because I love you guys and it's making my life better. So thank you.
Yes, I will ditto that because I realize how much I look forward to my Saturday mornings a lot of times because in a weird way, I do get filled up, and I do feel, you know, love and acceptance, and that I can be a little genuine here with you guys, more genuine than I do a lot of people out there, you know, because you guys have seen me cry, you see me get upset, you see, I'm not your typical male. I'm not that staunch, um, you know, that is one thing that's hard for me to do. But at the same point, I do keep a lot, of things deep down and, buried and hidden because um, in one of my studies with my church from my friends, we were getting into some really, and I was sharing some very deep and personal stuff with them, and they don't even know half of what you guys know. And it was just very, I feel safe with them, but it's not the same as here, and it's weird. And so in that, this has been my place of, you know, getting letting things out I need to let out, but knowing that yeah, people will see it, but I know it's going to help somebody because I'm sure there's somebody else out there feeling a lot of how I feel. So, in that sense, I believe that it's positive. I believe that it's helpful. And I believe that we are doing a big service and value to people out there. And it's just, when the right people need it, they'll find it. That's how I look at it. We don't have to push it, we don't have to force it. It's, the ones that need it will find it. And that's part of what keeps me happy, you know, because I want to keep doing this, like Catherine said, forever, till I'm old and, in the nursing home and I tell them, hook me up, I need to die, because, I'll need it, I'll still need it. So with that, it's just an amazing group. And I wish some of the others would come back, like Jason, and we need Karen back and, and things like that, because I miss some of them too, and I wish they would be back. So that's my little bit.
And Dan, you gave me a number of ideas. You said we need somebody back. You don't need anybody back. It's just they need to be wanting to be back. We can't have the need. I don't need them. I want them. But the other thing is, and you were talking. I've just been new to the group. My thought is, if you ever do get together and meet, that'll change the whole dynamic. Dan, you're saying you're a lot more open and can talk to people and you share more. But maybe there's some anonymity there also because you're not physically with them, but you're with them online. And I don't know. That's the relationship could change if you do meet. I'm just throwing that idea out.
For me personally, with these people, I've known them for so long, it would not change. It would only deepen it for me because I would be physically, because like I said, I'm like you, I'm a touchy-feely person, so I'm not really fully connected in that sense. I at my church where I usher, I give hugs like crazy to everybody that will let me hug them. That's who I am, and that's how and that's part of it. And I've not been able to do that with any of these people because they are that important to me. So for me, that would just cement it. But in essence, for the rest of it, um, I'm just getting to in this other group. I'm just getting to know some of these people on a more uh, deeper level and a confident level, kind of like here. I didn't share a lot when I first got on here. It took me a few years to get to this point. So, in that sense, that's and I agree with you. I don't want them. I don't need them. I want them to want to come back and feel that they're just as special as the rest of us here. And that they want to be here.
You just made me realize something. With the hugs thing, you were talking about hugging everybody. At my work, I hug everybody, and when I hug my family. I'm a big hugger too. But what's funny is that when I took the profile quiz, touching and touchy-feely is like on the bottom of my list. But I wonder, after we study all of these and we dig deeper into our own love languages, if we retake the profile, if it will show up any different when we make some realizations. Because I have been really paying attention to my relationship with my husband and what we do on a daily basis. I've just been more observant, I guess. And I do touch him and hug him and just lean on him. And we're just close with each other, not like constantly or anything, but I come home and that's the first thing I want to do. I just want to, he'll be sitting there and I just come up behind and I just want to hug him, and so maybe I'm more touchy-feely than I think I am. I don't know. So it's interesting. I really enjoy this chat. And Dan, yeah, I can't wait to give you a big hug. And Sandy and Catherine and Bill, if we meet, I'll give you a hug too, even though we haven't known each other all that long. So are you on a plane? Where are you? Or is that that chair that you're sitting in? No, I guess you have like a wreath behind you there. It almost looks like okay, theater seating in your house. Nice. I like that.
Party at Bill's house.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Anybody else have any final words before we wrap up? Nope. Okay, awesome, guys. It's been wonderful having you all on here. Oh, Bill, did you want to jump out?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, I saw you unmuted there. All right. So with that, guys, everybody who is watching this is recording. There'll be some links below this video. You can jump in our Facebook group. You can download the study guide. You can download or get the link to go to take the profile quiz on the 5 Love Languages website. You can connect with us. And if you want to participate with us next week, go to SaturdayMorningMastermind.com. There's going to be some links in that Facebook post, because that web URL will take you directly to that Facebook post where you can find the link to join us. You can find all the links to our replays and playlists from all the books that we've studied, and pretty much anything else you want to find out about us, you can find out in Facebook in our Facebook group. So with that, have a great, awesome, and amazing weekend, and we'll see you next week on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now. Love you.